Okay, welcome everyone, as we are sponsored by the Fogel family, Nishmas Yaakov Zeb ben Yud Aryeh, Rivka Bas Yaakov Yosef, Tzivya Miriam Bas God, Yosef ben Tzion ben Yaakov Zev, L'Refuah Shalema for Moshe Aryeh ben Miriam, and for a great Shidduch V'chaya, Tzivya Bas Shoshana Gittel. We're sponsored by Baruch Ian, Lili Nishmas Yaakov Chaim ben Abba, Esther Bas Yona, Avram ben Shmuel HaKohen, and L'Refuah Shalema for Liva Bas Anya. We're sponsored by A.B. Spry. A shout out to A.B.'s in Eretz Yisrael. We're sponsored by Mark Frankel in loving memory of his father Yisrael Tzvi ben Chaim Yeshua Falek. We're sponsored by Berish Gesemin, and that's L'Refuah Shalema for Shoshana Bas Adina Chana. We're sponsored for the spiritual, emotional, and physical protection for Yeshua Menachem Mendel ben Bela Shendel Rivka. We learned L'Refuah Shalema for Moshe ben Bela. We learned for Danny Vogel's mother, who is buried today in Baltimore, Etta Rachel Bas Yitzchak Tzvi. She should have a lichtige Gan Eden. And we learned L'Refuah Shalema for Mordechai ben Sarah Rina. We are holding
Mordechai Tzvi ben Ruskana.
Mordechai Tzvi ben Ruskana.
And Chaya Freda Bas Rachel Rivka.
Chaya Freda Bas Rachel Rivka. They should have L'Refuah Shalema. Zlata Bas Esther Beryl, and also for Chaver Adaf Aaron ben Sarah, and for Nachman Yaakov ben Sarah. They should have L'Refuah Shalema b'Seich Shechel Yisrael. We are holding on Daf Ayin Ches Amid Beis, and we're holding by Veramini. Deli, a bucket that's tamei, shehu malei rukin, that's full of spittle. Spittle is thick, it's not water. Vidbilu, and you would tovel it, so the spittle, which is thick, acts as a chitza, and it's an interposition. Ki'ilu loy tava, mei raglayim, but urine is essentially colored water. So mei raglayim rayin aisai ki'ilu hein mayim, and we use the principle of ashaka, and the mei raglayim connects to the water of the mikveh, and the bucket is tar. Malei mei chatas, if it's full of the water of lustration. Now, water of lustration is the water that's mixed with the ash of the paraduma. Water that's mixed with the ash of the paraduma is an avatuma. The reason why it's an avatuma is because it's metame other people. That's what Shlomo HaMelech said. Amarti echkema, I thought I would be wise. V'hi rechoka mimeni, and that it's metame es hatahirim and matar es hatameim. Right? It's the mechatas is matar the tamei meis, but it's metame other people. But it's metame other people, and it's considered an avatuma, and therefore it has its own identity, right? So therefore, if the bucket is full of mechatas, ad sheyirbu hamayim al mechatas. So we say that the bucket is only tar if there's more water in the bucket than mechatas. Then it's mavatal the mechatas, and then the bucket is tar. Now, man shamas leid islay rowan, who holds of the opinion of rowan, that we say that we view something as something else, because that's what we're saying over here. We view the meiraglayim as if it's water. Who holds of rowan? Reb Yehuda. And yet over here it says that we go basarayv. We don't say that we would view the mechatas as if it was a different color, and there would have to be enough water to take away the color of the red, but rather we go simply basarayv, that if the is majority of water and the minority is the mechatas, that's enough to neutralize it. The katani desagile beruba. So Amar Abaya, Abaya says, using one of the oldest answers in Shas, and that is one is Rabbi Yehuda and one is Rabbi Yehuda's Rebbe. Hadidei Hadaravya. One is his own opinion, one is his Rebbe's opinion. The Tani Rabbi Yehuda Aimer Mishum Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of his Rebbe, Rabbi Gamliel, Ein dam mevatel dam. Blood can never neutralize blood. Ve'ein roik mevatel roik, and spittle can never neutralize spittle. If you have the spittle of a zav or a zava, which is an avatuma, roik cannot be mevatel roik. Ve'ein mei reglayim. If it's a mei reglayim of a zav and a zav, the body fluid is of a zav or a zava is an avatuma. Ve'ein mei reglayim mevatel mei reglayim. So you see that his Rebbe is of a very stringent opinion, and his Rebbe would here also hold that majority is not enough, but rather we would view that which is the problem as if it would be red, and we would say that you need not to have a simple majority, but you need enough of the water that it would take away the color of the red. Rava says no. The reason why over here a simple majority is good enough is because we're talking about a bucket that's tamei outside but not inside. Now normally that's not the case. Normally tuma, a keli that's tamei, the whole keli becomes tamei. That's the normal case. But here we're talking about a bucket that became tamei through mashkin midrabana, through rabbinical tumah of a liquid. And because there's a din d'Rabbanan that mashkin makes something like a rishon, it's only rabbinical. And because it's only rabbinical, in order to remember that it's only rabbinical, this is an idea throughout Shas, that since it's rabbinical, we make a difference, because if it's rabbinical, we won't burn truma for rabbinical tumah. So in order to remember that the tumah is only rabbinical in nature, we make a difference to the tumah, and the difference over here is only the outside of the bucket is tamei, the inside is not tamei. So really, we don't care about the bucket on the inside. When he puts it into the mikveh, the outside is submerged properly in the mikveh. Why do we need to worry about having majority good inside? So the reason is Rava Amar B'Tli Shetoichay Tahar. It's talking about a bucket whose inside is tar. V'gabay tamei askinan. Its outside is tamei. It only has a tumah d'Rabbanan. So the Medina sagiluhu b'koldu. So actually, according to the strict letter of the law, you only need a little water to come over the rim just to get the rim. But Rabbananu de Gazrubahu, the Rabbanan were afraid that maybe since it has meichatas inside, you'll be frightened to submerge it at all, that it should flow over, because you don't want to disqualify the meichatas and adulterate the meichatas. The Gazru Dilma Chayas Alayu, you'll be concerned about it, and you won't have, this should be V'loi Matfilei. Just check that girsa. V'loi Matfilei. You won't immerse it that the rim should get toivel, because you're afraid that the water will get in and ruin the meichatas. The kavandik ribuya, but if you have the majority, then you don't need any more than majority. So now the Gemara says, in these rules of mixtures, we're going to have three categories. Amar Rava, Emma Rabbanan B'taima. Sometimes the Rabbanan say it depends. The decisive factor is the taste. The Emma Rabbanan Beruba, sometimes the decisive factor is majority. The Emma Rabbanan Bechazusa, and sometimes it depends on appearance. Min b'she'enai minai, if it's one type mixed with a different type, like remember we said the grain that was mixed with the rice. So we said that even if the rice is the majority, you could use it for matzah on Pesach, because the predominant taste is the wheat, and therefore we go basar the wheat. Min b'sheina mina b'taima. We go basar the taste. Min b'minai, if it's mixed up one kind with another kind, beruba. Normally we would go according to the majority. But heicha de'ike chazusa, but if it's the item that's forbidden or a problem has a color, so then it's not enough the majority. We go basar b'mara. We go basar the appearance. So if the appearance is still there, even though there's a majority against it, you can't be neutralizing. Now, if you remember, is Mark here? No, he's not here tonight. If you remember, I'm sure Barry would have done the same. I'm sure that Marshall would have done the same thing, with two hands tied behind his back. So Marshall ate a piece of pigel and a piece of nicer. And we don't know which piece was bigger. So we say that we can't give Marshall Malchus. Why? Because if the piece of pigel is bigger, it neutralized the noser, and then he would be over pigel. But if the piece of nicer is bigger, then it would neutralize the pigel, and he would be over nicer. And since we don't know which piece is bigger, then we can't give him hasra, because we don't know. And we can't give him conditional hasra, because hasra is suffix lo yishma hasra. But this was predicated on the belief that Isser is Mavatal Isser, that one Isser could be Mavatal the Isser. So if the pigel piece is bigger, it's Mavatal the Isser of nicer. If the nicer piece is bigger, it's Mavatal the piece of pigel. And that's what we said, that Isur and Mavatlin Zeh. However, Upligia de Rebbe Lazar. This is in direct opposition to Rebbe Lazar. The Amar Rebbe Lazar, Kishem she'ein mitzvahs mevatla zu ezu, just like mitzvahs can't neutralize one another, kach ein isurin mevatlan zu ezu. So also the isur wouldn't be mevatel one another. So you don't have, it's not true. So if you would have, let's say, a kazayas of nicer and two kazayisim of pigel, you could still certainly give asra on both of them. Because even though you don't know which piece is bigger, but the two kazayim is not mavatal the one kazayis. So therefore you definitely have both are aser. Says man shamas lei the amar ein mitzvahs mevatla zu ezu. Who says that one mitzvah is not mavatal the other mitzvah? Oh, it's a raya from the Haggadah Shel Pesach. Hilleli, right? What we call kairich. Right, what we call making a sandwich, right? Barry knows all about the Earl of Sandwich from his pastrami sandwich days in Shmulka Bernstein's. The Gemara says, the Tanya Amru Alav al Hillel Hazaken. They said about Hillel Hazaken, Shahaya Korchon Babas Achas. He wrapped together the Korban Pesach, matzah and morar, v'oichlon, and he ate them together. Mishum shenemer al matzah yisum marayrim yachlu. So you see that the mitzvah of Pesach is not mavatal the mitzvah of matzah. The mitzvah of matzah is not mavatal the mitzvah of morar. So you see mitzvahs are not mavatal one another. So then averis would also not be mavatal one another. So now, as we turn to Daf Ayin Testament Beis, and as we return to Ayin Testament Beis, I should welcome in Michael and Barish Gesseman, Eddie Chazan, Yisrael Fisher, Baruch Ian, Dr. Guy, Marshall Castle, Yaakov Warman, Irving Fishbaum, Ruvain Pollack, Sean Fogel, Shelley Zeitlin, Saba, Dr. Black, Ben Zion Cohn, Shimon Klein, Menachem Imansky, Nachman Chapler, Barry Cement, Yitzi Muller, Stephen Holtzman, Moshe Lehman, Avram Rezepkowitz, Ilya Shutman, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg. Missing a lot of people tonight. Wow, a lot of people aren't here tonight. We don't have Richard Rosenweig with us. We don't have Mark with us. We don't. Well, a lot of people are missing tonight. Yitzi Fuchs is in Baltimore, in Chicago. I mean, Yitzi Fuchs is in your area of the woods.
I'm running.
He's by a chasana.
That's his excuse for tonight. I
Yeah.
haven't gone to check it out yet.
Okay, so Tana Rabbana. Here we have a urinal, and it's a piece of earthenware from a urinal that absorbed urine from a zav or a zava. Remember, urine is body fluids of a zav or a zava. It's an avatuma, and if Marshall picks it up, it becomes tamei b'masa by picking it up. So Tana Rabbanan charson shel zav v'zava, a piece of a urinal that a zav and a zava urinated in. If you put water in it, Pam Rishon v'sheni tamei. If you put water in it once and then a second time, it doesn't remove the absorption of the urine. Shlishi tar. But if you put it in a third time, then we say it comes out and the urine is neutralized. Now, you'll say, but we know that cheres ein la takana ela b'netitza. Cheres only has a takana by breaking it. So what do you mean that it becomes, that after 3 times it goes out? So here the Rishonim say a very big chiddush in cheres, that which we say that you can't purge it is only when it was used for hot. But if it's used only for cold, you could purge it by putting water on it 3 times. However, bamedvar mamurim shenasan l'seichei mayim. That's only if you put on it water. Avalei nasan l'seichei mayim. If you only put in urine, no, it's urine that was tar, but urine, afilu asiri tamei. Even if you applied urine 10 times, it's not going to neutralize it, because ein mei raglayim mevatel mei raglayim. Raglayim is not mevatel mei raglayim. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Shlishi, the 3rd time, afal pi shenasan lo nasan l'seichei mayim, even if it was urine, tar. So who holds over here, the Tanakama, that even if you put on it 10 times urine, it doesn't help? Man shamas le da amar min b'minai le batul, Rabbi Huda. And yet, he seems to hold that 3 times water is enough to remove the problem. Ay v'raminu pishtan, flax, shetavasai nida, that was spun by a nida. Now, in the spinning process, they moisten the fiber with the spit. And if the spit, the spittle, the reik of a nida is an avatuma, because it's her body fluid. Masita itar. If you move the fiber, you're tar. Why? Because we assume the spittle dried out. V'im hayalach. However, if it was still moist, then of course it's a body fluid. Masita tamei. The one who moves it is tamei. Mishamash kapia. Rabbi Yehuda says, Af haroitvoi b'mayim, even if you kept it moist with water, and besides the spittle, they kept on making the fiber moist with water, Tamei mishum mashkapia. It doesn't take away the absorption of the spittle. Vafilu tuva, even if he put water, if even water was put on 3 times or 5 times. But earlier, Rabbi Yehuda, who said that his opinion of min b'minai loy batal, that's why Meiraglayim doesn't fix it, holds that 3 times is enough to purge the fluid. So why isn't 3 times enough to purge the spittle? Says the Gemara. So this is something that we wouldn't know. The fluid of spittle penetrates deeper into the flax than urine penetrates. Amra Papa Shani Roik, the color it's more penetrating, and even Rabbi Yehuda holds that you can't get it out after 3 times or even after many times. It goes in deeper. Now, the Mishnah tells us that if the blood of a carbon gets mixed up with blood that's puzzle, that's blood, let's say from an animal that was a roivea or a nirva, or an animal that was pigel, so we learned in the Mishnah, yeshafech la'ama, you spill it out into the canal. Rebbe Eliezer says that in the Mishnah, Rebbe Eliezer argues, and in the Mishnah, Rebbe Eliezer says that if the blood gets mixed up with the dam atamtsis, with draining blood, we say that the good blood is mavatal, the draining blood, and he holds its kosher. So what are they arguing about over here? So let me talk to you about this a little bit outside. There's a gzeira over here. 1 second. I'm actually in the middle of share now, but I just wanted to tell you that we are going to that hotel, and I gave them your information, so they might call you. I just wanted to let you know. Okay? I just wanted to give you a heads up. Have a good night. Bye-bye. Now, so if you don't hold like Rabbi Yehuda, that min b'minai lo batal, then if the good dam is the majority, it should neutralize the draining blood or the blood that's puzzle. What would be the reason not to do that? The reason not to do it is a gzeira that you might use it even if you don't, even if it's not a majority. Now, in the beginning of the Mishnah, we didn't make such a gzeira because the Mishnah said dam that gets mixed up with water, right, or gets mixed up with wine, we said that you could neutralize it. And they didn't make a gzeira. So why over here do we make a gzeira? Because in the beginning of the Mishnah, it's not normal for blood to get mixed up with water or wine. That's a milsa de lo shchicha. And we have a rule in Shas that milsa de lo shchicha lo gazu b'rabbanan. Something that's not shchiach, the rabbanan don't make a gzeira. But blood that drains out, that's shchiach, because after the lifeblood is blood that drains out. So there's a question whether we make a gezeira or not. So the Gemara says over here, b'mai pligi. Why does Rebbe Eliezer say it's good and the Rabbanan say it's no good? So Amar Rav Zvid, b'geizrin gezeira b'mikdash kamifligi. The question is, do we make a decree in the Mikdash? Because when you're making a decree, you're making Kachim disqualified because of a decree. Do we do that? The Mar Sover Geisman, the Tanakama holds, we make such a decree, even though the good blood was the majority. Omar Sover Loi Geisman. Rabbi Eliezer says that we don't make a Gzeira. Rav Papa says no. There are Gezeiras in the Beis HaMikdash. Rav Papa Amadikuli Alma Geisman. But the question is, draining blood, is it likely that the draining blood will be more than the lifeblood? Here the question is it likely that draining blood is more than the lifeblood? The Tanakhama says that can very well happen. And therefore, on a milsa de shchicha, we make a gezeira. Omar savar lo shchiach. Rabbi Eliezer says it's not likely, and therefore it's a rule. It's in the category of milsa lo shchicha, and a milsa lo shchicha lo gazer rabana. So the Gemara says it turns out that according to this pshat, the argument of Rabbanan and Rabbi Eliezer is only in the second case at the end of the Mishnah, where the dam hatamsis gets mixed up with the dam hanefesh, not where dam that's puzzle gets mixed up with dam that's kosher, right? Because there, you can't say that it's not shliach that the dam that's puzzle should be more than the dam that's kosher. Why isn't it shliach? It's from a whole animal. Right, so says the Gemara that would explain why Rabbi Eliezer doesn't argue on the first case; he only argues on the second case. So Bishlam Rapapa Hainu Diktani Nisar B'Damas Psulim Yeshafik La'ama, because everybody agrees with that, and then it says B'Dama Tamsis Yeshafik La'ama, and Rabbi Eliezer argues. El Rav Zvid, but according to Rav Zvid, it's a question whether you make a gzeira or not. Then why didn't it say dam posel and dam hatamsis together? El Rav Zid avinu v'lisninu. You should say them both together because they're both arguing on both cases whether you make a gzeira or not. Says Gemara Kasha, that's just a good kasha. Now it's early, so we're going to learn the Mishnah now, even though it goes into tomorrow's daf. But tomorrow is Wednesday night. It's a chumash here, so if we could get ahead, that's always a good idea. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvaro. Dam tamimim b'dam ba'alei mumin. Here we have Marshall, and he gets mixed up the blood of unblemished animals with the blood of blemished animals. And of course, the blood of blemished animals can't go on the mizbeach, so yeshafach la'ama. Now what happens, he doesn't get mixed up the blood, but there's 6 clay shores of blood. 5 of them have good blood, and 1 of them has blood of a balmum. And he mixed up the goblets. You know, Marshall, when it comes to goblets, right? He mixed up the goblets. Kais bekaises. Rebbe Eliezer, this is Rebbe Eliezer's old opinion, that he said if you offered 1 head, you could say that head was the head of the balmum. So here, if you offered up 1 kais, we could say it's the kais of the balmum. Rabbi Eliezer, karv kais echad. Then we could say that was the one of the balmum, and yikruvu kol hakaisos. The chacham say to the contrary. Even if you offered all of them except for 1, that last one might be the balmum, and you have to pour it into the canal. Afilu karv kulon chutz meyachem mehem yeshafech la'ama. Now Marshall gets confused, one of his names is Confucius. He's the Chicagoan Confucius. The
Ancient Chinese secret.
Yes, 100%. Together with Romanian francs.
And heartburn.
I have a feeling that's not such a secret. So anyway, hanitonin lamata, blood that's supposed to go below the chut hasekra, like an oila. Shinis arvu benitonin lamala, that gets mixed up with the blood of a chatas that's supposed to be put above. Rebbe Eliezer says no problem. Yitain lamala, make an application above. Some of the ola blood goes inside on the wall. Like we said, we view it as fuel. We'll view that as water. And then he takes another application and he does it below to be Yaitzi the ola blood. The Chacham say no. You cannot apply ola blood above. Rather, you shafech la'ama. You should pour it all out into the canal. V'im loy nimlach v'nasan, but if you didn't ask and you did an application above and an application below, kosher. Now, the following conundrum, which can only happen to the king of conundrums, Marshall, this is easy. If a bechor gets mixed up with meiser, both bechor and meiser behema only need one application on the mizbeach below. So anitonim b'matana achas shenisarva anitonim b'matana achas, no problem. Yinosnu b'matana achas, just make one application, and it's no problem. Matan arba, matan arba. If let's say an oila or an oshim or a shlomim, where it's shtayin shein arba, where it's on two opposite corners, southwestern corner, northeastern corner, and you make two applications, one on each diagonal corner, which is 4. If they get mixed up, or if two chatases get mixed up, which is on the 4 kronos, on the 4 corners literally, no problem. Yinosnu b'matan arba. But now the plot thickens. Matan arba b'matan tana achas. Let's say a shlomim gets mixed up with a bechar. Now the shlomim you have to do on 2 diagonal corners. The bechar you only do on one application. So Rebbe Eliezer says no sweat. Yinosnu b'matan arba. Put it on the 2 diagonal corners. Rabbi Yeshua Aimer, no. Yinosnu b'matana achas. You only put it on one, because remember, even if you do one application, but the evidence it's good. Now, what's the argument over here? Because we know we have 2 problems. We have a problem of Baal Taisif and Baal Tigra. You're not supposed to do more, and you're not supposed to do less. Right? You're supposed to do the right amount. Right? You're not supposed to do more, and you're not supposed to do less. So, Amalei Rebbe Eliezer says if you only do one application, so on the blood of the shlomim, Hari, you're over Baal Tigra. You're over doing less because you're supposed to do Shtayim Shein Arba. Amalei Rabbi Yeshua, so Rabbi Yeshua says, but if you do 2, then on the Bechar, you're over Baal Taisif. It's only supposed to be 1. Hari, you're over Baal Taisif. Amalei Rabbi Eliezer says the Isra Baal Taisif is only when it's by itself. But here, since it's together with the blood of the shlamim, there's no Baal Taisif. Amalei Rebbe Eliezer, lo nema Baal Taisif, el kishu ba'atzmai. When the blood of the Bukhara is itself, then you can't do 1. You can't. If you do 2, then you're over Baal Taisif. But here, since it's together with the blood of the shlamim, you're doing 2 because of the shlamim. There's no Baal Taisif. Amalei Rabbi Yeshua, so Rabbi Yeshua says, what's the problem to do one? Do one. You're saying it's about Tigra. It's only about Tigra if the Shlamim is alone. But since it's together with the Bechar, which is supposed to be one, like not about Tigra, Alakashum Ba'atzmai. And then Rabbi Yeshua gives the final blow, the final punch. You see, Rabbi Eliezer, according to you, when you do two, then you're being over on the Bechar blood Baal Taisif, and you're doing it b'yadayim. You're doing an action. When you do one, it's true that on the Shlamim you're over Baal Tigra, but you're doing it passively. You're not doing an action. I'm Rabbi Yeshua, Kishin Asata, when you put on two, Avartal Baal Taisif, V'asa Ma'aseh b'yadecha, you're doing extra. Kisheloina Sata, when you did one, which you say you're doing one for the Bechar, Avartal Baal Tigra, you're taka doing less, but doing less, you're not doing anything. V'lo yasisa Ma'aseh b'yadecha, it's passive. It's better to be passive than to be active. That's by the way, a big klal, that although normally we're not oiker a mitzvah in the Torah, but we will do it if it's sheva al tasa, if it's passive. So for example, when Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbos, we don't blow shofar. We're being oiker a mitzvah in the Torah. Yeah, you're being oiker a mitzvah in the Torah, but you're doing it passively.